They're doing one of the most dangerous jobs in the world right now, and these workers are amongst the busiest in Liberia today, in charge of tracking down those killed by Ebola. And there are plenty. Many die just like this man, at home alone, too frightened to admit they have the disease which would lead to being ostracized. He's still highly infectious, even in death, and both his body and his clothing need to be treated with extreme caution. The workers themselves are taking a tremendous risk and wear heavy protection. Everything in his tiny one-room home, the small communal passageway outside, the next-door neighbours' rooms, could all be contaminated with the virus now, and those living on either side of him must now be potential Ebola carriers. Every contact with the victim and his belongings risks spreading the virus. This is a heavily populated area where people live next to each other, cheek by jowl, yet the team's given a very wide berth. That, they tell me, is the most dangerous part of the job. And every step of the way, every time they touch him, they sprayed on the ground and everything. But that place is filled with little rooms still occupied. So that whole place is now a scene of insecurity and potential illness for all those who live there and this whole community.
We are going to face a dangerous situation on the field.
Mark's in charge of Monrovia's Recovery Team 3.
As we go in, we listen to one another, what to do, what to not do.
Gallons of chlorine are mixed. It could be the difference between staying healthy or becoming an Ebola victim themselves. They go in convoy with a police escort for their safety and for speed.
They have a dead body down a suspected Ebola body to go and pick up.
And is it typical? I mean, does this happen often that people are dying in their homes before reaching hospital?
Exactly so. It happens every day. There's no day come that people don't die in a house. Every day, every blessing day.
And this is the problem. Whilst there are so many dying in the community, the virus continues to spread. The team goes through this procedure at least half a dozen times a day. Mark goes on ahead to prepare the relatives and neighbours. All dead are now cremated on government orders, unless there's proof the cause was not Ebola. And cremation is totally against tradition here.
So immediately the call, we have to respond to take this body to care for cremation. That's it. And we are
whether it is an Ebola victim or not.
Yes. That's a straight mandate that the government has given. I guess everybody is aware. We are doing cremation. No, we don't want that.
We don't want that, he says.
No, we don't want that.
Cremation means Ebola, and no one wants to admit to an Ebola death. It's a tough choice. Agree to cremation or be left with an infected corpse. Mark gives them an ultimatum. They have 5 minutes to agree to let the workers in. But fear is always the victor. They always agree in the end. There really is no choice. Listen to that sound. The wailing you hear is not just the relatives grieving, but a community realizing there's Ebola in its midst, and they are all now at risk. Poverty and ignorance are feeding this crisis, and few basic resources so many months into this epidemic means it's still not being contained. The laborious cleansing process afterwards is carried out in front of the crowd.
Well, we do it in front of the local people to see that Ebola is real, that they should be careful. That is the reason why we tell them to stay away from us, and we stay away from them, because we don't know their status, they don't know our status.
At this stage, do you feel worried for your colleagues, worried for yourself? You're keeping a bit of a distance.
Yes.
Tell me about that worry.
We protect each other, because if anybody is affected, myself, I will be affected too. So even if the dressing to go in, any mistake, we cover it up. Any mistake they make, we tell them. Sometimes we spray them out.
The death truck is now a horribly familiar sight in Liberia's capital, a constant reminder that the disease appears to be winning. The reassurances from the president seem at odds with the piles of body bags collected hourly. For Mark and his team, this is all about national duty and sacrifice, and so far he's a spotless record. No one on his team has taken ill in the 6 months they've been doing this.
You pick up 5,000 barley, 50,000 barley, but when one person in the team is affected, then he haven't done the job. Because you are protecting the body, the dead body, and then the living one dying, then you haven't done anything.
And for this deeply unpopular job, the workers get paid around $800 a month. Mark's team may be young, but they're utterly dedicated. And why are you so determined to do this job?
It is not, I'm so determined to do the job because I feel within myself that if I do it, I will be someone great tomorrow. That when people see me, they'll say, yes, he was the one who fought Ebola. And he fought Ebola until it get out of this nation.
When I first started, my families, my friends was afraid of me to the extent I couldn't enter in my own horse. I couldn't enter in my own horse. To the extent that when I come in, they would lock the door and put my food in the plastic bag and give me for me and eat. Wow.
Your own family wouldn't let you back into the house?
Yes.
In full protective clothing, they tear up the grass outside one of the handful of treatment centres in the country. Such is the anxiety about Ebola, they fear the grass may have the virus on it, so it has to go.
The virus is something, of course, it's a lazy disease, but it's something that spreads very faster. So people move up and down. As patients come in, they pass through the grass, and you yourself, you pass at the grass, they touch you, they can easily be transferred.
Those trying to save Ebola victims take extraordinary precautions. We joined them in one of the capital's few isolation centres.
You can imagine how nervous the actual patients are when they're faced with medics like this, but these are just the required precautions that they have to take to try and maintain their own safety.
Only 18% of Liberia's Ebola victims are reaching one of these centres or hospital. This centre was meant to take 40 patients. Instead, there are more than double the number of sick and dying. Dr. Jonathan Hart is one of only 3 doctors running this centre. There are so many sick, they're sharing beds in the open air. Here they seem to be just waiting for death. 8-year-old Saba barely responds.
Drink your food, all right? Eat a little food by the grace of God. You get well, okay? Open your mouth for me, see. Open your mouth. See that? Open your mouth for me. Let me see your tongue. Open your mouth. Okay?
Around the corner from her, the man laying on the bed being showered with buckets of disinfectant is her dead father.
Yes, that's a patient that expired. So now they are preparing the
Many of the sick believe once in here, you never leave, except in a body bag. But Dr. Jonathan takes us to another section. These are the survivors, those who've beaten the odds and the virus. They're kept in quarantine for a week after appearing Ebola-free before being discharged.
You are an example of someone who has survived, a very rare person. Tell me and tell your fellow Liberians that it is possible to survive.
Yeah, when Ebola kills you, you can survive on it. And the poor doing well, yeah, they helping all, they feeding all 3 times a day, they treating all good, anything we want, they giving it to us.
Okay, now, Amma. Yeah, Amma, how old are you? You know your age? How many years old?
Ammar doesn't know his age, but he looks about 4. And no one knows why some, like him, survived the disease, though rehydration and good food help. He has lived, but he's now all alone after his mother died. Mark's team pick up another 5 dead from Dr. Jonathan's isolation centre. The last little bundle is one of the many babies who didn't make it, only 8 months old. Her mother died too.
I have my own daughter, she's 1 year or more. I have my son, the other one is 7 years old. Seeing all the people, children, they are positive, that it doesn't go well with me.
Heartbreaking.
Very, very disheartening.
For the medics here, this work's not only extremely risky, it can be soul-destroying too. Dr. Jonathan admitted he felt overwhelmed with the sheer numbers needing his help.
How do you get the courage, the determination, the will to carry on in these circumstances?
I think that comes from my calling, the desire I had as a child to help save life as a doctor. And I see this situation as one of the chances, if not the only chance I may have, to do what I've been wishing to do all the days of my life as a child till now.
Outside the centre, George has just found out his sister's died. Another Ebola victim Dr. Jonathan couldn't save. He doesn't need to say anything when he goes home to his extended family. This was what they'd feared. His brother's wife is also in the Ebola centre. Their grief is exacerbated by fear. How many more of their family is carrying the virus? He goes to see his sister's children, who've been on their own since she was taken into the Ebola centre. They've been relying on handouts, but the community and even their relatives are now scared of them and whether they have the virus too.
11 years old, yeah.
Are they all sleeping there now?
She tells us all of them are now sleeping on the bed where their sick mother spent her last days at home.
Where am I here? Since our mother is not here, we all sleep on the same bed.
Even if they've somehow avoided the virus, they're going to have to grow up quickly to survive, because few in this frightened community will be willing to help them. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Monrovia.